I remember when I looked at this place last year, they wanted something like $14,000 for this. They said it was a great deal. If I didn't take it, somebody else would have. Ah, this freaking city. This city. Anyway, so I went for a little bit of a ride. This is going to sound really bad because I'm using this motorcycle-ish helmet. I like this motorcycle helmet because it keeps my head warm when it's freezing and windy outside, a little bit more than a normal helmet does. So, but the thing is, all the early reflections, because there's all that chin guard and stuff, so you're going to hear a lot of early reflections and other crap. I just kind of wanted to ride around, show you what it looks like on Christmas. Usually Manhattan's kind of dead on Christmas. Manhattan is usually dead because Manhattan's a businessy district. It's besides, Harlem, Morningside, Washington Heights, and some of the Upper West Side before everybody left. For the most part, Manhattan is really, like, you have some people that live here, but it's really a businessy kind of place. It's a business. The Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island are the more residential areas of New York City. Yeah, I thought I'd ride over to Times Square, take a look at what that looks like. I'm going to close my helmet because it's cold. It is freaking freezing. Ah, that's a little nicer. It's like a heater. This is FIT. This was a school where a lot of people used MacBooks because they were artsy. And it would have been really nice to have them as customers, but, the school closed a month after I opened. Talk about luck. Talk about luck. This is 8th Avenue over here. I used to work around 8th and 30th Street. That was my first office, my first real office. There is nobody here, and it's Christmas, so I'm going to give myself the gift of jaywalking. It's kind of freaky seeing it this dead. There is something freaky about seeing it this dead. Because usually a lot of these restaurants are open on Christmas to grab the business of the schmucks that are stuck working on Christmas. Because there are schmucks that are often stuck working on Christmas. I've been one of them. It's Gardenia Deli. Shout out to my friend Dino that always used to torture the people at the Gardenia Deli for a better portion. Dino and Albert used to have this great back and forth. Dino is one of my best friends. I kind of... Got an overpriced hotel up ahead. That's one of the worst diners in the city, with the worst service you'll ever get. Yet they always have a line out the door because of location. There are certain businesses where you could be the worst business on earth and still be in business. TikTok fucking diner. If Jake is watching this, Jake, you remember what it was like when we used to go out for a breakfast, a dinner there. Usually anytime there was, back like 11 years ago when I was still working at the studio with him, trying to build my business, when there was something difficult would come up in life, or a question, or a happy moment, something worth celebrating, we go to TikTok Diner to celebrate it. I don't know why they became a tradition, because they sucked. Hey, maybe it was just because they were just around the corner and it was a sit-down place and it wasn't crazy expensive. I wonder if that reverse psychology works on Vice News. All right, so this is Times Square. We're coming up on Christmas with the pandemic. Let's see what it looks like. Whew. New York Times to my right. That's a Microsoft store over there. They're trying to copy Apple with the stores, instead of copying Apple with a cohesive user experience. It's definitely the retail that made Apple successful. Definitely had nothing to do with the trying to provide a cohesive user experience. We're going to identify as a bus for the purposes of going through this block. So there's still some people outside on the street. Hopefully. I used to like Pax Foods. I'm really sad that they closed. I loved Pax. When I used to do house call MacBook repair, they'd be situated throughout the city. I'd know if I was a few blocks away from one of those, I could get a decent meal. There's a lot of places in the city that'll feed you. Most of them suck. A lot of them suck. Or they're really, really expensive. I used to have this standard. Would I be full? Is it healthy? Is it $10 or under? And is there a bathroom that I can actually use after I'm done eating? If you fit those 4 criteria, that's like 5 stars right there. And PAX always fit that criteria. So I was kind of a fan of PAX. Okay, you got a fairly decent amount of people out for Christmas. Surprising. So many big buildings. Midtown's this part of Midtown around 6th Avenue and 42nd Street is much fancier than the shithole part that I'm in. Like there's West Midtown or the southern area of it where all the buildings are like 120 years old and made of shit. Whoa, horsey. That's a horsey. Holy crap. This is Bryant Park over here to my right. I used to do my repairs in this park. I'd meet my customers there in 2009. That was a long time ago. This is a strange looking building. You see how it has that slide thing there? It's kind of tilted so that if you jump out it, you'll probably just kind of slide down it. Kind of reminds me of Foxconn every time I pass that. That's a line for the bathroom at Bryant Park. Herald Square is less popular, so there'd be less of a line. This is the New York Public Library right here. I remember going there when I was 16 on a field trip. When I went on that field trip, I thought Manhattan's the most beautiful place in the world. I don't know what it is I need to do, but I want to live there someday. That was when I was 16. I was so beyond a moron. Like I was completely clueless about the truth of the world, or what this place is actually like, or how business is done here, or how there's like 5 or 10 blocks in all of Manhattan where shit actually looks nice, and then the rest of it is a patched together Eugene construction style dumpster fire. But I remember going to just getting off the bus at this building and thinking, wow, it's amazing. This is my bus stop right here when I used to work at a place called Progressive Music in the Film Center building as an intern in 2007 and 2008. That bus's last stop, the X1 that took me home, used to be at 1:45 a.m. Sadly, sometimes I'd miss it, and then I would have to take the train to a shuttle bus, to the ferry, to a bus to get home. That was horrible. Like if I missed it and I got out of work at 1:30, I wouldn't be home until 5 or 6:30 in the morning. Those were fun times, living in Staten Island. That's the library building. It's a nice building. This area in general is really, really well-to-do. I didn't realize that, you know, if you wanted to have a place that looks like my apartment in this area, that it would cost you around $20 million. Okay. That's an actual bus. Maybe it's time. They have buses late on Christmas. Yeah, so this is where I am. Kind of curious if any of the restaurants near the store are open, or anything is open near the store, actually. That's a Chipotle. This is 34th Street. 34th Street is where all the stores are that are hyper corporate and can afford a loss leader location. A loss leader location means they're probably paying $150,000 for that restaurant, or $100,000 for it. Maybe if they're lucky, like 60 to 80,000. So they don't expect to actually make money at the location. It's just there to be there. I hate the concept of the loss leader. I really do. I know I sound salty there. It's just I hate that idea of like I understand why people do it, and I'm not saying it should be illegal. I'm just saying it makes me salty. Mostly because usually I'm on the other end of the equation. That light is green for me. I will take your pizza from you as I hit you with my electric bicycle. Outdoor dining, baby. I don't know how the hell anybody's doing outdoor dining right now. That blows my mind. Outdoor dining? Are you kidding me? It's like 30 fucking degrees. I have gloves on, and I'm actually pedaling. So I'm doing physical cardio exercise, and I have gloves on, and my hands are freezing. So how are you taking your gloves off to then touch metal silverware when you're not going through a cardiovascular process that's going to make you feel warmer? Explain how that works. Okay, maybe a little bit of motor to get through the red lights. But for the most part, I'm pedaling today. Flagship retail available. Look at that. It's not normal retail, it's flagship retail. But look at that shitty building. Look at that. Look at that. Held together by spit. This is a nicer building here. You can see another retail space available there. I don't have the bike with the really sick headlight tonight. I have the bike with the normal one. See, I can't really show you stuff the same way I could with the other one. My other bike, I'm using my spare. My normal one got messed up by salt. Like when it was snowing and they put all the salt in the street. So I gotta clean it all up, wipe it down and everything. That bike also has the larger fenders because it has those mountain bike wheels. It doesn't have this one has the slimmer wheels that when you go over a bump, it feels like the pothole is just directly throttled right into your balls, which is not preferable. But since it has smaller wheels, the fender can go right above the wheel, all the way around it, so you don't get as much salt everywhere. So it's kind of better for that. Look at that. That's outdoor dining right there. See that? That's outdoor dining, but there's nobody there. Because people don't want to eat outside when it's 29 degrees. That's crazy. You know, unless you put a wall, a ceiling, and some space heaters, some electricity. Maybe they could add an outhouse, have an outdoor toilet. There's nobody there, so I'm going to go. I remember dating this girl in Kansas a long time ago. Very short-lived dating, but we were going across the street, and it was on this road in Kansas that was totally fucking empty. Like completely empty. Nothing there. It was flat, and it wasn't New York. There wasn't pollution, so you could actually see a good mile down the road. Nobody there. The light was red, and I go to cross because I wanted to get to the food faster, and she goes, "No, you can't do that." And I go, "Why? The light is red." And I said, "Yeah, but there's no car." And she goes, "Yeah, but the light is red." And I go, "Yeah, but there's no car." "Yeah, but the light is red." It's like, "Yeah, but there's no fucking car. What, are you crazy?" I don't understand it. There's no car. There's no car. Oh, let's play a game of chicken. I love me a good game of chicken when the light is green. I have good brakes. I'm half kidding there. This is my block. That is the hotel across the street from me. Why are there boxes in front of my store? Wait a second. Those are not boxes. That's a person. Let's see. I gotta put my bike. Excuse me, man. I got some money here for you. I have $60. You want it? Sir, Merry for Christmas. Shit, there's somebody in there. I'm going to take this $60 and I'm going to leave it on the box, all right? So, here you go. I usually don't do that, but it's Christmas. He's probably high as shit. I remember seeing this one video a while back. I forget the channel it was on. But this kid is walking around New York City that doesn't live here. He's walking around New York City and he doesn't live here. And the kid sees a guy on the street and everybody's just passing him by and he's like kind of half passed out. And he goes, "Oh my God, nobody is helping this man. Why is nobody helping this man? Nobody is helping this man." And then like everybody in the comments was saying, "I can't believe how cruel everybody is." And then you could find the one New Yorker in the comments who said, "What do you," because the kid called 911 to report it. And he's like, "Man, that kid know how inconsiderate he was? The fucking ambulance is going to come by. They're going to ruin his high." They're going to ruin his, they're going to ruin his trip. And like that's sadly the case. A lot of the times the people who are. The last time I did that, I think, was on Christmas of 2016. I went to visit San Diego. San Diego. I went to go visit, where was it? Yeah, San Diego. I went to visit my friend. And we went to this restaurant. And I was on my way back to the hotel. And I had this, like, half of this truffled gnocchi dish. It was really good truffled gnocchi. I mean, it should be fucking $35 for a dish of truffled gnocchi. But it was good stuff. And it was this person saying, I'm hungry. And he was asking for money or food. So I walk over to him and I say, "Here, try this. It's good." He takes it. He throws it in my face. I wanted to beat him up so fucking bad. But you could see he kind of had like shit on his clothes and all sorts of other stuff. And I was pissed. But like a lot of the times people don't help those in need because you want to help those in need and you feel bad and you do. And then you like something like that happens like 3 or 5 or 10 times and you regret it. I don't know. It's different when it's in front of your store and it's Christmas. I feel bad because it's in front of my store and it's Christmas. Hope he doesn't get used to it, though. I'm not giving you $60 every time I see you. Government already takes 40-something% of my money. Let them do something about it. Who am I kidding? They're not going to do shit about that. Probably to start another war. There should be a war on homelessness. Probably go as well as the war on drugs, the war on terror, the war on poverty. I remember hearing this George Carlin skit where they said we like war because we're good at it. Like, I don't know, are we? How's the war on drugs? How's the war on poverty? How's the war on, how is the war on, what is it? War on terror. We don't seem to win them very often. But they seem to last much longer than they originally anticipated. And we always seem to make it worse by going to war with it. 50 years after the war on drugs, we have the opiate crisis. 50 years after the war on poverty, how's poverty? 20 years after the war on terror. I don't know. It's Christmas. I'm usually a Grinch, but I'll just try to not be a Grinch just for Christmas. Just for Christmas. I remember when I had the old store, not the old store, the old office at 251 West 30th Street, and I was renting from John Grossbart. There was this person working for me that would show up late constantly, and it wouldn't be late by a little bit, it would be late by like hours. And it happened on a day when I got a lot of product in that it was out of stock of for a few days, so I had a lot of orders to do. I had to ship out like 1,200 boxes that day. It was horrible. So I said, I was thinking to myself, I could fire this person and literally hire a homeless person that would do a better job. And then I realized I'm at 251 West 30th Street. I think 255 West 30th Street was an actual homeless shelter. So, let me put my money where my mouth is. So I went upstairs, just for the fuck of it, and I said, anybody want to make 50 or $100 today? You have any spare time? And I was like, of course they have spare time, And it's really hot in this place because the ventilation wasn't that great. It's really hot. This is summertime. It's like 95, 96 degrees. The humidity is all the way up there. And it's not really the heat that does it to you. It's the humidity. And the one good thing about this place, it was a basement and the AC kicked. So basement, it's already easy to keep cool. But the air conditioner was killer. So I said, I got the AC turned down to 65 degrees downstairs. I'll get order some Muscle Maker Grill. We eat, we pack some boxes, make some money. The guy actually did the box packing that I needed done. He packed all the stuff. He put all the, he shipped all the orders with me. He helped me get it all done. And then I noticed, since I got done with my orders so soon, I can do my RMA pile. Go over to my RMA pile. He stole it. He stole. He stole it. He thought that that was so annoying. That was so aggravating. Sadly, that happened twice. I mean, the RMA pile was just literally crap that didn't work, but it looked like stuff that was valuable. And since it looked like stuff was valuable, it's like, making $100, getting a meal for a few hours of packing boxes isn't good enough. Now let's steal some shit while we're at it. So like that happened a couple of times. And like, there's only so many times that shit can happen before you become like the rest of the people in New York City, where you walk past stuff like that on the street, and you totally stop giving a shit. But it's hard to not care about that. Like, the guy is in a bunch of boxes because it's fucking freezing. You're not sleeping on the street tonight. You need insulation. So he has you see the wind? It's everywhere. So he has all the boxes to keep the wind in. He's got all the boxes to keep the wind in, the wind out, not the wind in, the wind out. And he's sleeping in the front of the store on fucking Christmas. I remember Dino told me at one point, and he grew up in Louisiana, dirt poor. He went to jail at least like 8 or 9 times in his life. He was dirt poor, and he would tell me, I don't have sympathy for these motherfuckers. And I go, why? And he goes, well, this is crazy, because to me, I was a very bleeding heart person when I was a teenager. And then it started to change a little bit into my 20s. You know, after I had a New York City experience, kind of hardens me after a while. But he said, well, you have to think about it. How many people did he have to piss off to wind up there? Where, like, so I said, what are you talking about? And he says, okay, so, like, I'm here living at a studio, right? You know, clearly I fucked up a bunch of shit in my life. I'm living in a recording studio and, you know, making the $600 or $1,200 a month or whatever. But let's say that I get kicked out of here. Like, would you let me sleep on your couch? And I said, yeah, sure. You know, not forever, but yeah, for a while, until you find something else. It's like, yeah. I mean, you know, he said, you know, Jake may say that too. Some of the other people here may say that as well. I know some friends and so on and so forth. So it's like, I'm not going to wind up there. It's once I get kicked out by everybody that I know that happens. And why is that going to happen? Because I stole something from you, or I fucked with you, or I did something to every single person in my life, and every single person that gave me a hand, I fucked them over in some way. So now there's nobody. There's not a cousin, not an uncle, not a friend, not an old coworker, not an ex. Like, nobody that will even let me have their couch for a night. They'd rather see me freeze in the street and die. What does that say for me? And then I said, no, that's BS. You're being way too cynical. That's crazy. I don't believe that. I'm not going to believe that. And this is a year before I had my experience where I hired some people from the homeless shelter to help me out for the day, and they took my RMA shelf. And then I was stupid enough to actually do that again, and they took way more shit than the RMA shelf. It was a different set of people. They actually did the job they wanted them to do. You know, I'm not going to complain. I got the job I needed to be done. I thought, you know, I'll get what I need done. My conscience will feel better because someone who's broke will have $100, a meal, it'll cool off a little bit, stop sweating. Yeah. Now, obviously, it's totally different. All that shit kind of goes out the window right now because work is illegal. You can't, and that's the thing. Like, even 10 years ago, you could kind of point at where some people's dysfunction, how people got to a certain point of dysfunction, and kind of say you had a hand in that. You had a hand in your own lot in life. You can't say that now anymore at all. You just can't. You can't. Because literally, it's because work has become illegal. You know, a lot of these businesses are closed because they don't have, you know, it's Christmas and it's Christmas late afternoon, early evening. There's no business for them. But a lot of them are closed because it's actually illegal for them to open. If they open, Cuomo is going to send the sheriff in, and the sheriff's going to make sure they stay closed. So that's why you have a city that looks like this now. But working is illegal. So we're at a point where even if you do everything right, even if you did everything the system said you were supposed to do, you were a good boy, you were a good girl, a good Z, you went to work, you know, you did your job, you didn't get write-ups, you saved away a little bit of money, you could still be right out on the street, just like that dude in front of my store at some point. Because all of your friends at that point, that would be the people whose couch you would surf on, also don't have a job. So they're also homeless. So it's like, well, it's very easy at this point for your entire support network to be just as fucked as you are. So I think that's going to change a lot. Because even a few years ago, again, I'm not saying this is the case for all people. This was not the case for all people. So, you know, there are people out there, through no fault of their own, they just got fucked hard in ways that you could never anticipate or never prepare for. But we all know people that just they fucked up their own lives. We knew they were fucking up their own lives. We tried to help them as they were fucking up their own lives, and they just kept fucking up their own lives. They just kept going down a road of absolute horror and misery, and there's nothing you could really do about it because they wouldn't listen to you. And every time you tried to help, they fucked you over. And then at some point, you just wash your hands with them. There was a lot of that. And they used to be able to look every now and then at sections of the homeless population and see in them some of those individuals that you would try to help that would just, you know, swat your hand away and say, fuck that, I'm not doing any of the stuff that you want me to do. No, I'm not accepting any help, not changing anything. But now this is going to be really interesting, and not in a happy way, in a very sad way. Because you got giant swaths of the population that did all the right shit. Everything they're supposed to do, were responsible citizens. And that which is required for them to be able to live indoors, to pay their rent and pay their bills, is illegal. That's hard. Oh, my recorder's still going. Very good. I was reading an article in the Times today about rent cancellation. And a lot of people are calling for it, rent cancellation. Because there's just, again, if your job was made illegal, if your industry was made illegal, then there's not really much you can do there. I mean, this isn't even like having a rainy day fund. What, you have a rainy career fund? Just in case your career becomes non-essential? Just in case your career becomes non-essential. Yeah, it's going to be interesting how that works out. Because they're saying, well, the landlords really need to get a bailout here as well. And they're asking the state, not the federal government where money printing can occur, but they're asking the state for that, where there is no money printing. And granted, money printing is not a good idea to begin with. If you look at how much, let's say, minimum wage was in silver in like 1960, and then you look at what minimum wage would be now, I mean, what that same amount of silver is worth now, I think you get something like 15 or 16 bucks an hour. So like printing money hasn't exactly been the best. You know, a lot of the socioeconomic issues that people rail about, like a lot of it really does wind up going back to the fact that our currency isn't really worth shit anymore. But aside that, actually, I forget where I was. I can't pedal here because then I'll just get run over by a bunch of angry people. This is Canal Street. So, motor go brr. Oh yeah, so when it comes to those bailouts, New York State does not have any money to bail out every single landlord. So I remember reading an article that said, earlier in the year, something like 50% or so or more of the tenants in New York City had not paid their rent in several months. And when you look at the amount of people who rent in New York City, it's somewhere between 3 and 5 million. I think it's like 5 million. So if you have half of those haven't paid their rent, then you're looking at something like 2.5, 3 million, 4 million people maybe by now, because you have to think about it. Time has continued to stretch onward, so that number is probably going to go up. Because at first, you only have the people that are immediately not paying their rent. 5 months later, now you're going to have all the people that were... Look at this. I know... I got to ride down here. This looks so disgusting. This is Broadway. So Broadway is pretty much the most... I'm sorry to cut off my train of thought. This is just... Look at all the boxes and everything on the street. This is the most expensive... One of the most expensive blocks in all of New York is Broadway. This place is like prime real estate. So my store that I have right now on Broadway would be somewhere in the $40,000 to $70,000 range. I'm not making that up. I've visited them before. That's what it goes for. This is literally the most expensive part of the whole fucking city. And look at how dirty the street is. I mean, Jesus Christ. This is such a fucking shame. Look at this. Look at this. This is the most expensive real estate in the city. Right here. The most expensive. Like my current store in this area is going to be in the range, in the 70s range, around there. 60s to 70s. Jesus. Anyway, so back onto my point, which I kind of actually forgot at this point. Crap. Oh yeah, so the city is not going to have the money to provide several months of rent or a year's worth of rent for all these people. So let's say your average rent is, I don't know, let's just say it's like $2,000. In this city, you're average, because you got apartments that are $2,600, you got apartments that are $1,900, you got a lot of $2,000. Let's say it's $2,000. 5 months of rent, $10,000. Multiply that by 2 million people. So 4 zeros on 2 million. That's 20 million, 200 million, 2 billion, 20 billion. Okay, so $20 billion maybe? Okay, now you look at the state budget. So that's $20 billion to cancel rent for probably a lot of this year for a lot of the people. Now you look at this year. Well, we New York City was spending more money than it takes in. It was at the point, I think, of being close to spending more than it takes in. And that was when we had $75 billion in revenue. And most of that revenue was coming from property tax. Like 40 to 50% of the New York City tax revenue was property tax. Why are there a bunch of people with their Park Anywhere lights on in the middle of the street? I should have rode in this lane. I don't know why I was riding in that lane. I was begging to get the Park Anywhere lights on me. That's what this shit is, too. When you have those two lights in the car. I want to illegally park without admitting it. Anyway. So where are you going to get that money from? If, out of that $75 billion for the city or so, a good maybe half of it came from property tax, which comes from landlords who get their money from rent. Then how are you going? Because that money is going to be cut from the budget, along with all the income tax from the people that are not making money, along from all the money from tourism that's gone, along from all the money you used to make in income tax from the hotels that were situated here that for tourism. So the state doesn't have the power to necessarily bail out landlords. They can cancel rent, but then the landlords are just going to get fucked. And there's not a lot of love lost for a lot of the landlords in New York City. And this is the point in the video in which I bring up the thing I always used to bring up. If I made this place any nicer, you couldn't afford it. There's not a... This is a really festive looking block. I like this festive looking block. I like the dragon up there. It's cool looking. So how does that happen? How does that work? How do you bail out the landlords? Or maybe you don't. That's another part of the question. Because landlord could be seen as a job, or it could be seen as an investment. And hear me out here, because there's been a lot of people who got into real estate for investment purposes in the 2000s when there was that boom. And there were all these books on how to make money in real estate, how to invest in real estate, many speculate on real estate. And when politicians will push back and try to create laws that make it more difficult to speculate on real estate, there are real estate investors that will say, well, no, that's going to hurt investment. But one of the things about an investment is that investments can go down, and the government can facilitate that happening. So, for instance, I remember buying Agile Therapeutics stock in 2017. I was happy. I bought in at $250. Then I bought in a bunch more at $310. It went up to $519. I was like, yeah, all the way up until December 22nd. Because December 22nd is when the government, the FDA, issued a CRL. Now, their CRL didn't say, your stuff is unsafe and improper, doesn't work, go away. The FDA had some concerns about adhesion and something else, so they asked Agile to redo the way that they create this patch. It's a birth control patch called Twirla. So they wanted to see how the patch itself is a circle, right? So they were showing tests of adhesion, I think, with the patch as a circle. Here, I'm probably totally talking out of my ass because I'm remembering shit from 3 years ago. And they usually test it as a square, I think, because Band-Aids are typically in the shape of a square rather than a circle patch. So they wanted Agile to redo the entire test and present it to them so that they could compare it to the data that they currently have for things that are like a square or something like that. So Agile gets Corium, which was a publicly traded company at the time who was doing the manufacturing, to redo all of their manufacturing processes just so that they could satisfy the FDA's requirements, and said, okay, we've redone the test. Here are the results of it. As you'll see, there's no difference in the adhesion. It works great. They got a CR, so they submitted the data within less than a month to the FDA. Like, they asked them to change up their whole manufacturing process and everything, and they did it. And that's what happened. And the FDA issues a letter, and I did a video on this 3 years ago. I love government monopolies. I shit you not, they admitted in the letter that they didn't read it. So Agile had paid for a PDUFA, which is pretty much a way to expedite the process of getting a new drug or product reviewed by the FDA. They paid the expedited fee. They paid the rush fee. And the FDA then comes back over a month after they get the data from Agile, and they pretty much said, we haven't reviewed what you sent us yet. Like, they put a bow and a bow tie. They put a little bow tie on it. They made it sound professional, but they said, we didn't even review what you sent us. Hasn't been reviewed. I lost my shit because my investment went back down to garbage. It was worth less than it was when I bought it. I was so pissed. So the government, through their incompetence, made my investment in a worthwhile instrument worth a lot less than it was initially. And that's totally seen as okay. This happens on a regular basis. Yet, so it's kind of wondering when it comes to the concept of real estate. Real estate in many ways is an investment. It's purchased as an investment. It's purchased as a speculative instrument in New York. I'm going to buy this. I'm not going to rent it out for like 10 or 15 years and I'm going to sell it. Or I'm buying this as a speculative instrument and it's there to make money as an investment. And if that is the case, then do landlords have the right to get fucked by the government and lose the value inherent in their investment the same way that I do when I buy into a stock that the government fucks over with their incompetence? That's the type of argument that I think would have to be presented in order to lay the legal framework or the moral or ethical framework. If you call any of this ethical, you're out of your mind. But or to lay the framework for saying it is illegal for you to collect rent from an individual that lives within your property that you own, but you must still continue paying full property tax and income tax to the city and state of New York. I think that's what's going to happen. You see that a lot of people were protesting. They had a big rat outside with, and the big rat while they were protesting was supposed to represent Cuomo, I think. Sometimes I almost feel bad for him. I don't like him, but same thing with de Blasio. Because he's stuck between, in New York, you're really stuck with it when it comes to the voters and the people. Like Archie Bunker on one side and Carlos Maza on the other side. And you got to come up with a way to make them both happy. And that's just impossible. So you have all these activists that are calling for rent to be completely canceled. But then at the same time, on the other side, you have all the landlords who are paying 45% of the property of the tax revenue for the city. So the property taxes paid by those landlords, people who own property, is like 45% of the city revenue. And you need that revenue to pay for the relief that the people protesting against the landlords want. So what do you do? If you're a politician, what the fuck do you do? Because if I was a politician, I'd probably be climbing over that fence and jumping off the bridge right now. Like, there's no solution to that. There's no solution to that. You're fucked. everybody's going to hate you. And this is why I find it so hysterical when people say, Lewis, when you talk about a bad politician or a bad decision they made, you should run. You should run. Are you kidding me? The fuck would I do? I can't fix any of this shit. You have a city that somehow has become accustomed to having a budget of $79 billion. And I get strung up and hung. I get beaten like a piñata. I'll come in and say, yeah, that sounds optional. We could use a little less of this, less of that. We don't need this. We don't need that. We don't need this. We don't need that. Nah, forget that. And then the next day, all these individual groups, all the groups that were on the receiving end of that part of the budget would come up to my office. They would string me up. They would start beating me with a baseball bat, and there'd be no more Rossman Repair Group. Maybe Steve or Paul Repair Group at that point. You could have the federal government subsidize all of this, but then the currency then becomes worthless. And again, you got to think about that. In the 19th, minimum wage hasn't kept up with cost of living. Yes, it has. Wrong currency. Minimum wage in silver in the early 60s. What is that same amount of silver now? Now, you take that amount, what's the minimum wage that people are clamoring for all over the country? Yeah, see that? But if you don't print the money, then all these people are going to be fucked, and they will be out in the street. And once you have 2 or 5 million people in a city of 8 million people homeless, you don't have a city anymore. You don't even have a third world country anymore. I don't even think you have a worldly country. You just have I don't even know what you call that. But if you look to the left and everybody here, all those buildings are all emptied out and all those people are put in the street, there's really nothing that's going to happen at that point besides all the politicians' head on a pike. Or just about everybody else's head on a pike. You can't have a society that works, where large sections of people that did the stuff that they were supposed to do, that got a job, that went to work, that had a 1 or 3 month savings stored up in the case of a rainy day, that didn't spend all their money on Xbox games and cheese doodles and fancy cars, are tossed out on the street. Because if a society where you do everything you're supposed to do and you're still fucked winds up being the end result, then you're going to have a revolution. And then you have no more society. Sometimes revolutions go well. Sometimes you wind up back at square one. Square one was a much shittier society. Square one of the caveman days. Maybe not square one. Maybe you wind up at like square 5 or something. This is usually the part where people say, well, the states that didn't have all the closures and everything did fine, so why should they bail you out? That's actually an excellent argument. Why should federal tax dollars from other states bail out places like New York and New Jersey that had all these lockdowns, that have all this expensive rent to begin with, that, where people like Eugene were allowed to be born? And that's an excellent question. Good argument. And then it's also interesting. Another interesting argument is, why is it that New York pays more in federal tax dollars than it actually receives in services from the federal government? Because if you take some of the areas, some of the states that I'd rather live in, some of the states that I think are nicer than New York, they pay, for every dollar they spend in federal taxes, they get back $1.05, $1.10, $1.30, some of them as far as $2 in benefits. Which means that states like New York, for a long period of time, the tax money from New York, the federal tax money from New York, was going to other states. And what will it look like when New York is destroyed and there is no surplus tax revenue from New York to go to other states? But then the flip side of that question of, well, New York has subsidized other states for so long, it's about time for there to be some solidarity. The flip side of that is, well, a lot of that federal revenue, a lot of that tax revenue from New York that was going to other states came from rich people in New York. This is an unjust traffic light that never changes, and I will disobey it now because it is unjust. You don't get to have a blinking red thing that blinks red permanently without a working light below it. Anyway, a lot of that tax revenue is the rich people, because many people will say, when it comes to New York, I think over 50% of the taxes, 45 or 50% of the taxes are paid by, just a few large income earners here, a very small number. Not like the Apple thing where a very small number is millions of people. I mean, like an actual very small number of people are funding that. And if those people leave New York City and go somewhere else, then it may kind of not even really matter anymore. Because then those high income earners will be in the other states. And New York may not even have the capability, even if it were to somewhat recover, to contribute more than it receives back in federal tax revenue. Yeah, I think people miss out on that part of the argument a lot. They miss out on the part that New York and New Jersey and states like that, they paid a lot more. Like the federal taxes that got paid by residents of New York, they paid a lot more money in the federal taxes than they received back in services from the federal government. But yeah, being as divided as we are as a country right now, it kind of like anytime there's an issue like this that shows up, it's going to show up in all the ways that we try to resolve it or work with it. Like, you can't really resolve the issues that we have right now because we have this system that we do. But we have this system where there are certain states where, like, you're supposed to not like the people in the other states. I don't know, when I visit people in Nebraska, I like the people in Nebraska. When I went to Right to Repair, do stuff in Tennessee, I enjoyed Tennessee. When I went to Tumwater, Washington, I enjoyed Tumwater, Washington. Didn't like the traffic in Seattle. Fuck the traffic in Seattle. But I liked it. When I go to Brookfield, Wisconsin, I enjoy it in Brookfield, Wisconsin. Brookfield, Wisconsin is on my list of places to debate moving to. Everything there just kind of looks really nice, well put together. Affordable houses that are actually really, really nice, like beautiful. Like, $350,000, but it looks better than a $1.4 million thing in Brooklyn. Not that that's even saying much, because $1.4 million in Brooklyn will still get you a place with the roof destroyed. The people were nice when I visited Brookfield. All the people were nice when I visited Brookfield. It's kind of cold in Brookfield, though. I don't have to put wooden boards up on my window. This is confusing. Look, it's an NBC News van. I want to get one of those someday. For Right to Repair and traveling around, I want that thing. I bet my live stream would stop dropping if I had one of those things. Huh. They got another one right there. Yeah, I want one of those things. Note to self, I'm gonna Google what one of those costs when I get home. It's a cool looking van. I was jealous of the CBS people when I went to do the right to repair lobbying in October 2019. You know what the fucked up thing is? You go on Google and you YouTube, you search the word right to repair. The first result, not Jessa, not Kyle at iFixit, not me, but this fucking 4-minute long CBS video where they didn't even show the whole hearing. Don't get me wrong, I like the premise of what they were talking about with right to repair. But it's like they aired that video 1 year after they actually got recording. Actually more than a year after they got the recordings from that right to repair hearing. They aired a tiny little portion of it. It's just so crazy. If you're a mainstream media outlet, you really don't need to do a lot of work to show up at the top. At the top of the results. You're just kind of there. New York State Department of Labor. You can get away with doing a lot of really fucked up shit if you name your company something with the word good in it. Goodwill. It's crazy. I really used to think that they were a great, amazing company that really cared about people and their employees. Holy shit. Google Goodwill Treatment Employees. Instead of calling it Ross and Repair Group, I should have called it like Good Ross or something. Or Ross Good. Good Ross. Great Will. Positive Will. Positive Will MacBook Repair. Does that have a good ring to it? I hope it does. If you're feeling well, you're looking good. That's not true. I feel well and I look like shit. Every video is, why don't you sleep? You get no sleep. There's no sleep. Look at your eye. I can sleep for 14 hours. I'll still look like that. There's not much you can do if you were born ugly. There was a person at my old job at Model Sporting Goods that always looked unhappy, even though he really was. He always used to look at me and said, I can't help it. I was born that way. My mouth doesn't, it can't smile. I can't help it. I was born that way. So usually I'll respond to that, to the eye stuff. I can't help it. I was born ugly. Thank you, essential workers, it says up there. Now leasing. That's a building where you're going to be paying $4,000 for like a tiny cube that's smaller than my apartment. You can tell by how fancy they make it look. They make it look fancy to hide the fact that you're not getting something that's worthwhile. The fancier they make the lobby look, the more they can charge you a month for a cube. I don't want to live in a cube. I don't like the cube. Whew. This is Brooklyn over here. I went over the bridge. This is the fancy schmancy part of Brooklyn. I don't live in the fancy schmancy part of Brooklyn. I live in the part where every time the New York Post reports a new shooting, it's usually, oh, I know that. Oh, I passed that on my bike yesterday. Oh, that's right where Erica was dropping off the food at the community. It's totally dead here. This is a residential area. That's an arrow. Those things are slow as balls. Feel faster than me pedaling though. There's another arrow. You want to see if I can catch up to that arrow? Once the light turns. Let's see if I can catch up to that arrow. Also, let's play chicken with this one. No, man. It's my green light for me, man. You're not crossing. Yeah. Come on. Vroom. Now I remember why I don't take this way home. It has a stupid staggered lights bullshit. It's a waste of good brake pads. I don't like the staggered traffic lights thing. It's a total waste of good brake pads. Whoever had this idea for this type of city planning is likely a brake pads manufacturer or had stock in Shimano or something. See, he's brave. See what he did there? He didn't look to the left and his right before going through a red. When I go through a red light, I look to the left and I look to the right. I don't believe in luck. I don't think by that I don't mean I don't believe in luck. I mean I don't believe I have any. So I'm not brave enough to go through a red light without looking to my left and looking to my right to ensure that I don't die. Every time I see the delivery people do that, I think, man, you got some balls. You got some balls of steel to try to get yourself an additional $1.50 tip by getting the meal there 20 seconds faster. That's balls. I do not have a set of balls that big. Maybe if I did, my business would do better. But they're not there. I can't do it. See? You do this. And then you go through. That's the proper way to jaywalk. Gotta set a good example. It's a lot of garbage. That is a lot of garbage. Oh, shit. There's a bus. Send money 24/7 to the Dominican Republic. Flex envios. BHD Leon. That's what the bus sounds like. Well, about time to turn this off. So that's about it for today. Merry Christmas. Enjoy your holiday. Hope you the best of luck. And hope your 2021 is better than your 2020. But yeah, best of luck with that.